There is a verse in King Solomon's Proverbs 20:27 that I think is pretty relevant to this episode. Ne Hashem nishmat adam. The soul of man is the candle of God. This episode, we point the instruments inwards, at the one phenomenon each of you knows more intimately than any laboratory ever will, what it's like to be you, consciousness. And I want to show you that here, more than in cosmology, more than in fine-tuning, modern science has run into a wall its own leading thinkers describe as different in kind from every other problem, and that the Torah's account of the human being matches that with uncanny precision. First, the brain deserves its full due, because the neuroscience of our era is genuinely magnificent, and Judaism has no quarrel with a single scan of it. Inside your skull sits roughly 3 pounds of tissue, some 86 billion neurons, trillions of connections. Science has mapped it gloriously. The visual cortex, the language area. Watch grief light one region on a functional MRI and grammar another. Stimulate a point and a memory blooms, injure a point, and the faculty dims. The dependence of the mind's functions on the brain's flesh is established beyond dispute. Maimonides wrote medical treatises on the brain. The morning liturgy blesses God, who heals all flesh and does wonders, in the same breath as the prayer about the soul. But now watch where the wall appears. Everything I've just described, every scan, every lesion study concerns what philosophers call the easy problems. How the brain discriminates, integrates, reports, and controls behavior. They are called easy not because they are simple, but because they are the right kind of problem for science. They ask about functions, and functions can be traced. The hard problem, the term was coined by the philosopher David Chalmers in the 1990s and has stuck in the technical literature, is different in kind. It is this. Why is any of that processing accompanied by experience? Why is there something, as it is like to see red, the inner blaze of it, rather than the brain simply registering wavelengths in the dark, the way a camera does, which registers everything and experiences nothing? You can, in principle, trace every neuron that fires when you taste wine, and at the end of the trace you will have a complete account of the inputs and outputs, and nowhere in it, at no synapse, the taste. Science describes the world from the outside in the third person. Consciousness is the one fact that exists only from the inside. The philosopher Thomas Nagel put it as a famous question: what is it like to be a bat? And the honest answer of the entire scientific apparatus is that its instruments do not touch that question. Not have not yet, do not touch, the way measurements do not touch color. Be careful with what this is and is not. It is not a temporary gap where theology camps until the scanners improve. It is what the literature calls an explanatory gap in kind. No pile of objective descriptions, however complete, adds up to a subjective fact. Some serious thinkers, feeling the force of this, have concluded consciousness must be an illusion, to which the plain answer is that an illusion is precisely something experienced, so the theory refutes itself in the stating. Others, sober scientists among them, now argue that consciousness may be fundamental, woven in from the start rather than squeezed out of matter late. The debate is wide open. After a century in which we split the atom and read the genome, the inner light remains, by the field's own confession, unexplained at its roots. Now open the Torah and look at its account of the human being, because the text makes exactly the right cut in exactly the right place. Genesis 2:7 gives man two sources in one verse: dust from the ground, the body, continuous with Earth's chemistry, fully open to instruments, and then he breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. Everything traceable, the verse assigns to dust, and science has traced it. The experiencing subject, the one who sees the red and stands under the command, that, says the verse, is not a product of the dust, but a direct conferral, breath from the breather. And the tradition's oldest morning prayer addresses it with almost forensic precision. Elokai neshamah shenasata bi tahora hi. My God, the soul you placed within me, she is pure. You created her, you formed her, you breathed her into me, and you preserve her within me. 4 verbs: created, formed, breathed, preserved, recited daily for 2,000 years by people who never heard of the hard problem, asserting precisely the thing the hard problem protects. The inner light is real, primary, and not manufactured by the meat. While we're being technical, let me deal with the experiment everybody cites at this point. In the 1980s, Benjamin Libet found a readiness potential stirring in the brain a fraction of a second before subjects reported deciding to flex a wrist, and the popular press announced that neuroscience had abolished free will. The brain decides. You are informed afterwards. The fine print says otherwise, starting with Libet himself, who spent his later years protesting the headline. Later work showed the readiness potential resembles background tide rather than command. It appears even when no movement follows. The timing of a felt decision is notoriously hard to clock, and the experiments concern meaningless wrist flicks, not whether to forgive your brother. Libet's own considered view was that even as impulses rise unbidden, the person retains the power to veto. He called it memorably not free will, but free won't. Now hear Genesis 4:7, God speaking to Cain. Sin crouches at the door, and its desire is towards you, but you may rule over it. The impulse proceeds, the sovereignty is in the veto. The sages said the same of the Yetzer. No one is blamed for the thought that knocks. The moral drama is at the door. Libet's laboratory did not refute the Torah psychology, it merely sketched it. So let's return to the verse we started with, because its image is exact. A candle is a small local flame housed in humble wax, and yet the flame is not of the wax. It is the same fire in miniature as the light it serves. The verse continues, the candle of the Lord searches all the inner chambers. Your consciousness on this account is not an accidental glow given off by neurons the way heat comes off an engine. It is an instrument of illumination, the point at which the universe, made of dust, opens its eyes and finds itself addressed. Science can weigh the wax to the microgram, and we should bless it for doing so. The flame is a different kind of fact, the kind you do not observe from the outside because you are it. In the next episode, we come down from these heights entirely into the clinic and the hospital ward, where Jewish law does something almost no other ancient system does. It commands the doctor.